All right, 6:30 Friday, May 2nd. Welcome in for another Friday safety focus of the week. This week's code of conduct is to work to VOSHA, OSHA, FRI, ECI safety standards. Mr. Dow, anything to add?
I think also we need to also consider our own personal safety standards at the beginning of each day and before any operation. Set our own goals and standards of safety to protect ourselves and our crew.
Well said.
In addition to all your other rules,
all the
and
compliance.
Regs.
Yeah, it's a lot of compliance there.
Just wanted to add in that personal part, the personal standards.
Yeah, like it. So we did have a recordable injury, as it was last Friday, just after the safety meeting. So we're at 6 days from our last recordable. It was kind of a struck by, caught in between type of hazard that nipped us in the butt. So again, let's start today off with good hazard recognition. Let's follow that code of conduct and work towards VOSHA, OSHA, FRI, ECI safety standards and all the training that we've done throughout your careers. So let's continue to prioritize safety in our decision making so we can add another day to our recordable count. It's been 56 from our last first aid only case, and it's been 21 since our last vehicle incident. So let's, like I said before, just prioritize safety in your decision making and do not take unnecessary risk. And I think we can add another day to this count. Just kind of jumping off last week where we talked about underground utilities and how to prevent utility strikes out there. This week we got Vermont Gas Safety Director Dave Addick. Dave does a lot of training and awareness and outreach to all the contractors throughout Vermont about how to navigate and excavate and operate within Vermont Gas's infrastructure. So I thought it'd be good for kind of before we're already into construction season, but before we get too far into it, to have Dave in and kind of tell us a little bit about his expectations of us and also maybe some lesson learned or some things that he's seeing either us or other contractors are doing that are maybe taking on a little too much risk out there. So Dave, the floor is yours. Did we lose Dave?
I think you might have lost Dave.
Oh, we lost Dave.
Do you got his cell?
I do. Ben, do you want to just start off with our regular meeting and we can loop him back in if he jumps on?
Sure.
I'll pull up a last year's safety meeting in the meantime, just in case.
Yep. Okay.
I'll text him.
Yep.
Just here.
Yeah, just when you see him get back on, just let me know. You see my screen?
We got it.
Okay. We can adapt. So yeah, working near underground gas lines is our topic of the week. We have several announcements this morning. Again, today, May 2nd, there are 401k meetings up front in the front office between 8 and 11:30. There probably are still appointments available if anybody wants or has time to do that this morning and wanted to get up there and meet with one of our financial advisors from Morgan Stanley. Give Melanie a call or send her a quick email. She's already probably in here right now, and she can set you up with a meeting this morning. At 7:30 this morning, we have another informational meeting for the ESOP. I think this might be our 11th one. So if anybody's here, you got a little bit of rain. If anybody has that 1 hour to set aside to learn a little bit more about the ESOP, I think it's been very informative. You might have heard about it from others, but that's right here at 98 in the conference room between 7:30 and 8:30 after this meeting. The sweatshirts, the ECI sweatshirts, the Carhartts have gone up in price. We're now paying $60 for them. So we're going to still honor 50%, a 50% break on those for all employees. So we're going to cover half of it, and the employees will now pay $30 for those heavy Carhartt ECI sweatshirts. We've been pretty lucky. The last few years they haven't gone up, but they just went up from $50 to $60. Healthcare premium holiday is still in effect until July 18th paycheck. So that's good for all you that have health, the health ECI health insurance. Sarah still has a stack of transfer fuel cards for the transfer tanks in the trucks. So please go and check in with her and get those cards, because we need the cards to put them in use so that we can better track the fuel that goes into those tanks. Another quick reminder on the benefit management portal, which is called Employee Navigator. Several of us have already signed up. I think we were supposed to do it at the beginning of April, but a lot of us didn't get to it yet. So there's an email that Aaron sent out also yesterday that has a link so that you can all sign up for it and get on to the portal. It has everything in there about your benefits. It has beneficiaries. It's a great way to view all your information, but it's also a portal that they're going to be using moving forward for onboarding. So it's called Employee Navigator. Look for Erin's email or find it. She sent it to either your company email if you have one, or she also sent them to people's personal emails if that's all they had. Elena, are you on today?
I am. Good morning.
All right. I'm going to let Elena announce her an event that she is come up with and organizing with several other people. Yeah. Go for it.
So I know it's a bit early to announce it, but we want to let you guys know what's in the works. In October, we're going to be hosting ECI's first official Family Fun Day. Feel free to look at the flyer, but I wanted to highlight a few important things. This will be a closed event, so employees, significant others, children, and grandchildren are invited to attend. If your kids are anything like mine, they love anything to do with construction equipment, and we are excited to give them the chance to safely explore the equipment and allow you to show off what you do every day. The current lineup includes equipment to explore, an excavator to operate, swag to take home, and hopefully lots of fun to be had and lots of dirt to play in. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me. Also, because this is the first event of its kind, we have no idea how many kids to plan for. So while I'm not asking you to commit to come, if you could text me if you think you or your kids might be interested, just so we can have a rough ballpark for numbers as we plan, that would be great. My number's at the bottom, same with my email. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Elena. I think we'll run this flyer again as it gets closer. And anybody that has ideas and wants to help, make sure to reach out to Elena. Thank you, Elena. We got Dave Addig on yet? No?
He says tech issues, trying to restart.
Okay. Just want to welcome Kyle Dennis and Brandon Shappy back. They both are ECI returnees. So we're happy to have them back. They just started this week. So I ran their pictures so that anyone that is new since they left knows who they are. Kyle's in the paving crew, and Brandon's going to be out there on the roads driving the big trucks. Okay, Brendan, are you on? Brendan Stringer?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm gonna let Brendan, do you want me to drive this thing, or do you want to?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Focus of the week is a complicated over the bank test pits that one of the other services that we do, and we don't feature some of these other things that we do enough. So Brendan put together a nice little program for us this morning. Go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, so essentially we were contracted by Sanborn Head to perform some test pit work on a project that they had previously completed test borings on. The test borings indicated that there was a layer of clay overlaying underlying sands and gravels. And for this project that was supporting a future development, they ended up getting some resistance from a nearby landowner and they hired a different geotechnical engineer who said that the soils at the toe of slope were clays, and so our goal was to confirm basically that the soils at the toe of slope were not clays and were in fact sand and gravels. So you can see from this first picture here, the access is kind of coming down through that ravine channel. And if Dow goes to the next picture, you'll notice it's pretty steep through there. And so I visited the site with Brian and Jeremy, and we talked about the best way to get access down through there. Brian was confident that it wouldn't be a problem as long as we cut a couple trees and then cleared out some of the brush and reshaped sort of the top of the knob just at that entry to that drainage. So then once we got to, I think the next picture is Brian, working his way down the slope. You can see that it looks much cleaner, now that Brian's working his way down in there. He did a great job of sort of smoothing a little road in and just bailing everything in front of him so he could get down the slope. So then we got to the bottom and we dug our first test pit. In the picture there is Sean from Sanborn Head and Alan from Geodesign, which were the two sort of competing geotechnical engineers that we were caught between. The soils consisted primarily of sands and gravels, which supported Sean's assumptions and the data that they collected in the borings. Unfortunately, the groundwater was basically at ground surface down there. And so
it looks like a muck hole.
It was, we dug 4 feet down and then it just kept falling in on us. So we confirmed it was sand and gravel. We did not encounter any clays, and we decided to abandon that test pit and work our way up the slope. So we started backing our way up the slope. Brian was doing a good job of restoring everything. As he went, getting out of the mud was kind of challenging for a second, but we got it. And then we went on to our second test pit, which you can see here. So this second test pit was really cool, and I like this picture because you can see very clearly the line where the sands and gravels transition between the clay. So this confirmed Sean's assumptions that the clay layer was deposited horizontally, which generally makes sense in terms of the geology of how that occurs. And then the sands and gravels were underneath it. So as we worked our way up the slope even further, we got to our third test pit. And what you're seeing here is just a thicker layer of clay, right? A thicker layer of clay overlying the sands and gravels once again. And so we're supporting that idea that as we go up in elevation, the clay layer is getting thicker. But the bottom of the clay layer, that interface between the clay and the sand and gravel, generally stayed around the same elevation, which supports Sean's theory and what the borings indicated of a horizontal clay deposition. So then we got to the top of slope. Finally, we did our last test pit and we dug down through about 9 foot of clay, and we just scratched the top of that sand and gravel layer. The 75 that we used was pretty well at the max it could reach, and the sand and gravel was quite dense down that deep. So we were just able to scratch it and confirm that it was, once again, a significant clay layer overlying the existing sands and gravels. And so then this is a picture partway down the slope of what it looked like after we restored it. Brian did a great job smoothing everything out and just sort of making the slope look nice and buttoned up. And I think, for me, this project is a perfect example of how our test pit work should go, right? I love it when the engineers come out with a assumption of how things are going to go or some existing data on site, and then we're able to confirm it. In this case, we were able to confirm Sean's assumptions of a horizontal, soil layers, which was perfect. That was exactly the intent. It's not always that we get test pits that so clearly match up and align with our goals. So that was nice. It makes this a really good example of what test pits can be, right? It's not just digging holes, right? We went out there with a very clear hypothesis and we either confirmed or denied it. In this case, we confirmed it. So then the following day, I received a voicemail from the owner who was on site for most of the work. And I'll just read the quote here. He said that he really appreciated the work the engineers did on site yesterday. I was impressed by how efficient and competent your team was. It struck me that you guys know what you're doing, and it's a pleasure to see things like that happen. And I just wanted to put my own, complimentary tidbit in here for Brian. He made it a lot easier than I thought it would be. And as you guys know, he's a good operator. So that's not surprising.
Thank you, Brennan. Good engineering always comes from good information for for a design, and in what we do, subsurface investigation is like very, very important. And a lot of times when people skimp on that or don't do a good job, we all pay for it when we're trying to build the job. And we've supported a lot of engineering efforts over the years for local engineers to do test pits. I mean, before we go back to Dave, I'll say that the test pits are very important to finding the underground utilities, including the gas lines. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons to dig test pits besides doing the subsurface investigation for the engineering. A good example of one job we did, I think almost 200 test pits, is back here from the archives. In 2000, we went to Kinsman Notch, New Hampshire, and you can see the holes are numbered. Mike Twombly actually worked on this job with us doing survey work when he worked for Krebs. But these are just a few photos from 2000, some of the different test pits that we did. There's Delwyn Gilly, probably one of the better, more experienced operators that we ever had here, and myself up at the Notch. So I'm gonna turn over to the
Mr.
safety
Dow.
guys again. Yeah.
And before we transition, I'll just add on the note of test pits and geotechnical investigation, you know, the drillers and other divisions at ECI are constantly faced with jobs where we don't have enough subsurface investigation. And,
Yeah.
you know, Matt Steganowitz's crew, like Matt's doing
Yeah.
a great job because we do those foundations, right? So he's actually got change orders right now to do drilling on various jobs. So this is not just limited to when we get,
Yeah.
you know, a specific contract with the engineering. This touches all of our work. And in some cases, we have to go get more information on our own, maybe on our own dime, or force a change order to then make that happen. So it's just, this touches our work in many ways.
Yeah. True. Okay, Matt, over to you.
Yeah, I believe Dave's back with us. Dave, are you back on?
Let's just say I've been swearing at IT a lot in the background. I have no idea. Some upgrade or something happened, but I don't have a camera apparently. But if you can hear me, that's, I guess, the most important part.
We can.
So,
Yeah,
all right.
we would love to just hear your perspective of things that you're seeing out there, and just highlight some importance of how to prevent some of these gas leaks that are hitting the news lately.
Sure. Well, actually, the lead-in that we just had on test pits is probably the best lead-in I could have. Let me share. And anybody has any questions, just jump in and let Matt know, so he can let me know, because I might not be able to see that you're trying to ask a question. So if I can make this thing work, why does it happen? Well, mostly it's up to you. I've been doing this now for almost 35 years, been on the DigSafe executive committee for most of that. I do a lot of damage prevention training with contractors and excavators. And in the New England area, most people get called before your dig. That's very rarely do we have damages that people don't call. And when they don't call, it's typically, it's not that they don't know to call DigSafe. I'll give you some examples. We had a hit a year ago on Spear Street. I was doing some fire department training. It happens to be one of the fire department members after the training comes up to me and says, yeah, that was me. Anyhow, his dog died. And he went out to bury the dog under the big tree in the front yard. And he actually said, I thought about calling DigSafe, but I'm like, burying the dog, you know. And he hit a 3/4 inch PE service with the shovel, digging in hard rock. And the other cases where we don't get calls are the classic, it was called in, and everybody thought they knew where it was, and the marks got obliterated, so they didn't call in for a remark, that kind of a thing. But we very rarely is it, nobody calls because they don't know not to call. So I have, Matt thought a couple pictures would be good. You know, this is the type of stuff that we see very regularly. Vermont Gas averages now, we used to have like 30 hits a year. Now we're down to around 15, anywhere between 15 and 20 or so damages a year. I'm not going to name names in any of these contractors. You're probably going to figure out who they are just by the location. But this one was in the news the other day. This was one that was very well marked out. Obviously, a lot of work going on in that area. So the marks were all obliterated. I can't reemphasize the points of taking offset markings. When you get into situations like this where you know you're going to be tearing up the markings, take offsets. You know, technology's gotten great now. You can take GPS coordinates, so you know what's going on. In this case, our steel main is in this ditch, and we ran a plastic bypass earlier in the project to allow them to avoid having to work around the other gas lines so much. And as they were digging, you can see the excavator tooth. They literally scraped down across the top of it, knocked off a high pressure T, and we had to shut down an area. Unfortunately, it's the entire Church Street area, which is the most problematic area for us because all the meters are inside because of the confines of Church Street. So, you know, the restaurants got shut down. I mean, it was a real thing. So, you know, this is the kind of stuff that we see from time to time. Here's another one. I mean, and the point that to really focus in on all these is like the bottom left corner of the left-hand picture, which right up on the asphalt, a yellow mark, right? And right below that's is the gas line. So this was a case of that one extra scoop, you know. You know, how they thought they knew how deep it was, and they took that one extra scoop and instead of the hand shovel, and they hit it. You know, another one out, you know, you can see all the marks very well marked out. And again, they clipped it with an excavator. And then one last one, you know, this is stuff we see quite often. We're not perfect. We do have cases where our folks do mismark stuff. We had one locator that's retired years ago that used to always like to say, I mark the wire, I don't mark the pipe. As you guys probably all know, I mean, locating wire for the plastic pipe, we're locating the wire, we're not locating the plastic pipe. So if the wire, for some reason or another, a part of excavation activity or something gets pulled off or just, you know, moved, it can mark it off a little bit. So that's kind of the reason for that whole 18-inch tolerance zone on either side that we're all supposed to be working with. And then the other thing that becomes problematic once in a while, and I know you guys have your own locators, I believe. So some of your folks probably running this as well, as, you know, signal jump. You know, you're looking from the street straight up to the meter at the house. You're looking at maps. You're like, okay, here we go. And then as you're marking it out, unbeknownst to you, somebody laid a dog fence or cable TV or Burlington Telecom or something, and it jumps onto that, and you end up close to the same place, but not exactly, and that just happens to be the spot that gets hit. So, I mean, we own those, that it happens, but the vast majority of the damages are that one extra scoop. Not potholing to verify the depth is a big one. And then accidents. I mean, we had one the other day where the excavator, he did everything right, according to what he said, but he was moving the trench box, and the trench box slipped and came down and hit the service line and broke it. So those types of things, you know, you have the rock that rolls out of the side of the wall. Those are all types of things that you got to be aware of. And I think you had an accident, if you want to call it, you know, just the other day. Now, this isn't really DigSafe related, but, you know, it was one of those, it happens kinds of things. So, anyhow, so that's the show and tell picture piece. I think everybody's aware of the laws. I'm not going to go into this. Just be aware that the rules, you got the statute and you got the rules. The statute is the law itself, and the rules explain it. So where the statute says there's an exemption for routine public highway maintenance, doesn't mean, yay, I have to do routine public highway maintenance. I don't have to call DigSafe. The rule explains what that routine public highway maintenance actually is and isn't. So the rule's still good for that, but some of the other things don't jive. They haven't updated it, so some of the things are still a little out of date. And you all know, I believe, still that when they changed the law last year from, they're trying to change it to 48 hours to 72. The 72 got changed for the call before you dig piece, but not the locators have to market piece. Now, from what I understand, it's in a transportation bill that just got passed by the Senate a day ago. The guy has to go back to the House. So hopefully within a month or two, it'll all be straight across the board. Locators have to mark 72 hours. Excavators have to call 72 hours. But for right now, it's before you dig, you have to call 72 hours. Just want to remind everybody that this is a state law and also a federal law, extremely important, that if you damage any pipeline that has a flammable or hazardous liquid, so this isn't just natural gas, it could be propane, it could be gasoline, it could, whatever. The first call you have to make is 911. Not Matt Anderson down at the Vermont Gas. Call him next. Or actually call the Vermont Gas emergency number next. But make sure you call 911 first, get the fire department out there.
Yeah.
And you guys already have a pretty good, we have to fill out this report whenever there's a damage. We've been trying to get the DPS to change this report. I urge excavators to fill out the report as well, so you have backup information when things get investigated. Sometimes with the state, it may be months after the damage till things get investigated, and the person who worked there may not even work for you anymore. So it's good to have this stuff. They're supposedly changing it to make it more user friendly for reporting, not just damages, but locator didn't show up or locator's marks are wrong. And from what I understand, it's still in the works, but it hasn't happened yet. And then the last piece is obviously natural gas safety. You all know where we're at, I believe. We're Chittenden through Franklin counties, or excuse me, Addison counties now. Pretty much the I-89 corridor and all that pink area is where we're at. We have steel. We have distribution. Our distribution system is 99 pounds or 100 pounds for all practical purposes throughout our system. And the transmission lines, which are ones you definitely don't want to hit, those are all up into anywhere from 600 to 1,000 pounds. So you definitely want to stay away from those. Behaviors of gas, it's odorless. We give it that rotten, eggy smell. It's lighter than air. So the nice thing about it, that if you do hit a line, it goes up and away. It does follow the path of least resistance. So if you ever break a line under the ground, and it can't go freely straight up, it's going to go sideways. So if like you pulled a pipe and you're like, oh man, maybe we didn't break it. Maybe you broke it underneath the ground. You don't know about it. Extremely important that you still call us and get us out there quick, because it could be migrating underground and getting up into somebody's foundation. And those are the classic examples where somebody, Mrs. Smith comes home at the end of the day, turns the light switch on in her house, and the house blows up unbeknownst to her because the gas filled her house up. So especially in asphalt situations or frost situations where the gas can't freely go up, it will migrate sideways. Ignition sources, pretty much anything, smoking, backhoe, static electricity. Don't jump in a hole. We've had people, hit a service line with an excess flow valve on it, and it's not leaking much. So they'll jump in there, feats of strength. They'll kink it over and wrap some duct tape around it. Big no-no. When gas is leaking, it'll build a static charge up, and you touching it, just like touching your light switch or your TV in the wintertime, can create a spark, and you can have an ignition. So you just let it go. Call us, call the fire department. I always get the question, what do I do with the excavating equipment? If I hit the gas line, do I turn it on? Do I shut it off? Do I move it? I always toss back, your call. There's so many variables. This particular chart right here, natural gas will only ignite between a 5 and 15% range. So if you a 6-inch distribution main with that excavator, there's 100% of gas blowing right where you're at. So the reason it's probably not igniting is you are sitting in 100% gas. It's too rich. If you start backing that machine away, you're getting out of that range to the point now you may be getting into the flammable range, and the bucket may hit a piece of steel and create a spark, or something electronic on the excavator may ignite. So the bottom line, the way I leave it with the excavators is, if you're on a piece of excavating equipment, you hit a line and it's a screamer. I mean, oh shit, just get off the machine, just run, call 911, secure the area. Under the dig safe law in Vermont, you're required to protect the area until the fire department gets there. So evacuate the area, block the street if it's a street or sidewalk to make sure nobody walks through the area. If you see gas, even though it's colorless, you'll be able to see it, just distorted. If it's blowing into Mrs. Smith's house in the summertime and it's safe to do so, go knock on Mrs. Smith's door. Don't ring a doorbell and say, "Look, Mrs. Smith, you need to get the hell out of here quick," and shut the door so the gas doesn't go into the house, and just secure the area. Now, that said, if you hit the 3/4-inch service line and the excess flow valve kicks in and the laborer sits there and says, "I think we hit a line. I think it might be gas. I think I might smell it." In those cases, back the piece of machine away, shut it down. Same thing, secure the area, call the fire department and us, but it's a different situation. Not quite as bad. So yeah, we talked about this. Just things, if you're out and about, to be, obviously call before you dig. That's the best way to know that there's gas in the area. But, look for these things. If you see meters on the side of the house, you see, valve boxes in the street to say gas, etc., good indication that we're in the area. So you need to call DigSafe. Or if you did call DigSafe and there's no marks and you see these things, call us and say, "Hey, what's going on? Why isn't this not marked out?" Don't forget, and I'm sure you're aware of this stuff, you run into it all the time. In the Vermont, the law is utilities have to mark what they own. So we own up to the meter. So we're going to mark up to the meter. But in a lot of cases, unbeknownst to us, somebody may hire a plumbing heating contractor, and on the other side of the house, they tap into their inside gas piping and run it out through the basement wall to run to a pool heater, or to a gas grill, or to a street light, and we don't know about that. So if you're digging in that backyard, you could potentially hit that line. So again, I think you guys have your own locating equipment that you go out and try to locate, the privately owned stuff, so you don't hit that as well. But so there is stuff out there that we don't own that is buried. And obviously, of course, other utilities, electric doesn't always mark up to the house. A lot of times they just mark to the pedestal or to the service drop. So then you have to worry about getting the rest of it marked up to the structure itself. Propane as well. Don't forget propane. Nice thing about propane is if you can find the tank, if something happens, you still need to call the 911 and the propane company, but get to that tank valve and shut it off, so at least you have a little more capability of shutting it off in those situations. Almost finishing up here. Just remember, look at what you're doing. It's extremely important for the person who's doing the excavating to have a copy of the ticket. I can't tell you how many times we've had damages where, the office person calls the ticket in and they may not have exactly on that ticket what the work is supposed to be. A good example, a very simple example, is this was years ago, but Burlington called in a ticket for storm drain repair in front of 1 Maple Street. All right, storm drain repair right in front of 1 Maple Street. Well, we got out there, we marked it, and then we get a call that they hit a gas line, and we get there. Well, it was storm drains, plural, in front of 1 Maple Street and on the other side of 1 Maple Street. So the way it was written, it read that it was just that one storm drain in front of 1 Maple Street, and really it was the storm drains on Maple Street in front of 1 Maple Street. So make sure that's where the person in the field, if they have that ticket, they can look at it and they're like, wait a minute, this says I'm X to Y and I'm going to Z, so you can call DigSafe or the utility and get somebody out there to tweak it and amend it. Again, things don't run in a straight line. Never assume the depths. Depths vary. We talked about private meters and stuff. Live service tags, just a quick FYI on this. I said, look for meters. If one of you were to sign up for natural gas, if we're in the area, we're going to run the service line up to your house. There's going to be a straight pipe, a riser that comes up out of the ground, and we're going to cap that and hang this little tag on it. But the meter may not show up for months when you call us and say, hey, I'm out of oil now. Can you come and convert my appliances? And we have had cases, usually it's at condo complexes or something where, nobody sees the gas meter, but they see this pipe sticking up out of the ground. And we've had contractors saying, well, look at this ugly looking thing, get a Sawzall out and try to cut the pipe off to get it out of the way, and it's a live gas line. So we've been attaching these tags on them. Doesn't mean some kid might not tear it off, but it's just one more, way of alerting people. And then the excess flow valves, I've already mentioned a bunch of times, but we've been installing these in services for years now. They're not in all of our services, but they do make a huge difference. If ECI calls us up and says, hey, we just hit a gas line out here at, 1 Maple Street, and we immediately look up in our records and like, oh, that's a plastic service. Everyone just takes a deep breath, because we're going to know it's going to be a gas leak. We'll have to fix it, but it's not going to be a screamer because it has an excess flow valve in it. Those are the service lines, not obviously the main. If it's out in the main, you still got the issues. Almost finishing up here. Pipeline markers. Just remember, pipeline markers are just basically an awareness thing. It doesn't mean you don't have to call DigSafe. It's a thing that says, hey, there is something in the area, you call DigSafe. Marking tape for the old timers, that was the gold standard, where you put that bucket in the ground, you go down a foot, you hit the red, buried electric, the yellow buried gas, and you're like, ooh, there's something here. Well, you only put that in when you do open digging. And as you know, just as well as we do, open digging is becoming a rare thing now. Everybody does directional boring. And you can't put marking tape in when you're directional bore. So if you used to be one of those people that relied on the marking tape, be aware that marking tape is not everywhere all the time. And then, pipelines can be anywhere. Don't assume just because you're out in the middle of nowhere. Here's a couple pictures of our transmission line. And you guys are I think a good chunk of you folks have been involved with us on either transmission line repairs or some of the installation on newer ones. So that we're out in some pretty rural air territories. And then again, we already kind of touched on this. Move away from the affected area, call 911. Don't jump in the trench. And then other damages. If you hit something, if you scrape the coating, if you break the tracer wire, please call us. In most cases, we're not going to bill for something like this. If it was a good faith, we really trying, but we scraped the side of the coating because we want to fix the coating. We don't want it to corrode later. The tracer wire, we want to make sure it's in the straight row so we can mark it out. And if you see something, we've had contractors call us and say, hey, we didn't do this, but there's a big dent in your pipe, and we can tell that it wasn't them, that it's rusty and corroded, that it was somebody that had dug in the area before. So we can fix that. And then lastly, this is a thing I send out. You probably have a copy of this already. Matt, you can pass out through all your guys, but that is that. Any questions, anybody? Stories?
Oh, I got plenty of stories, but Dave, thanks for jumping on, kind of showing us best practice. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Someone had a question?
Yeah.
Fire away.
Hi, Dave. Walter Lazars. bridge worker here at ECI. How do we check our sense of smell out in the field?
How do you check your sense of smell out in the field? That's a very good question, actually. We have to check the gas in our pipe routinely, and our guys who actually test it, we actually test them on a routine basis. There's something we send them to the doctors, and it's like 20 different smells that they have to smell, right? COVID has created an issue because a lot of people have lost their sense of smell. So I would say, I mean, we have scratch and sniffs. Hey, Matt, if you want some, I can send a whole bunch over. You can scratch those and say,
Yeah.
okay, I can smell it. Or, I mean, it smells just like propane. I mean, if you turn on your propane at home and okay, I can smell it. I can smell. My experiences with contractors, though, most cases, even though once the lines hit, you could smell it. In most cases, it's not the smell that's the indicator. It's that loud hissing noise that comes along with the hit. There's not usually too many damages that are so minor that you can't detect it. But the gold standard is gas detection equipment.
Yep.
But for you folks, having the gas locators makes 100%. Having gas detection equipment, other than confined spaces and stuff like that. I mean, if you suspect there's a gas leak, don't even worry about trying to figure it out. I mean, even if you just suspect it, just call us. We got the equipment to get out there and figure it out really fast, whether it's natural gas or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dave, if you do have those scratch sniffs, we wouldn't hurt to have us have a couple. If an employee is curious on that smell and they haven't smelled it, that'd be kind of cool to have for an offering if an employee would like to check that out.
Yeah, I'll get some to you. I got boxes of them.
But again, thanks for joining us this morning, and we're going to try our best to respect your property and the Vermont Gas infrastructure out there. We apologize for what happened earlier this week. We kind of bridged that tolerance zone a little bit, trying to maintain a good safe space so we don't get in it too much where something bad could happen.
Right. Yeah. So, well, great. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Dave.
So if you're watching the group setting, please send over attendance. Let's have a safe day. Let's have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Sure.